Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy Wednesday. Really excited you're here. Thank you for joining us for this very important press conference with the Virginia Senate Democratic Caucus. Our senators and candidates are here, and we're very excited for the next 100 days that's coming up, one of the most important elections for us in Virginia. With that being said, we're going to hear from our Senate members as well as our candidates on the important issues going into this general election, and hoping to elect the Democratic majority again and hoping to also expand it. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to Senator Locke.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am so excited about our incumbents and candidates for this cycle. We have a great diverse pool of candidates this election cycle who represent the people in their districts, and they also represent the values of others across the Commonwealth. The Senate majority has done a great deal of work for our Commonwealth, and we would like to continue that momentum in the upcoming year. Today, we will be hearing from senators and candidates about the importance of electing Democrats this November. We need to focus this election on the following: making a more affordable Virginia, supporting Virginia families, fighting for Virginia's workers, protecting Virginians' freedom to make their own healthcare choices, protecting Virginians' right to marry the person they love, protecting Virginia from election deniers who want to overturn our democracy, fully funding our public schools, removing culture wars from our schools, investing in our children's future, supporting local law enforcement, addressing the rise in violent crime by removing dangerous guns from our streets. And with that, I'd like to now turn it over to our incumbents and our candidates, and I'll turn it over to Senator Aaron Rouse.
Thank you, Senator Locke. Listen, this 2023 session, every single member of the GOP House members voted to shorten the early voting period and ban absentee ballot drop boxes. The GOP House majority also passed bills that would have reinstated a strict photo ID law, prohibited ballot drop boxes, they wanted to reduce early voting, ended same-day registration, canceled the annual vote by mail option, and increased purges of voting rolls. The Virginia GOP moved to cancel a voter data partnership that would allow our state to fight voter fraud. Listen, early voting eases election day hustle and bustle. It allows for shorter lines, improved poll worker performance, and you have the ability to vote at multiple locations. Early voting in Virginia, it starts in September the 22nd to be exact. But listen, Democrats are already ahead of the curve on early voting because we have been on record as champions fighting for early voting and voting rights for years. Democrats have been mobilizing early voters since 2020, and now that's a 3-year head start. And my special election is the testament to that. And now I have the honor and privilege of introducing my seatmate, Senator Boysko.
Well, thank you so much for having us today. I'm Senator Jennifer Boysko. I am running for re-election in the newly created 38th Senate District, and I'm also serving as the Senate's fundraising chair for the Democratic Caucus. And want you to know that Virginians are coming to the table to help us in record numbers because we care about the issues that voters believe are the most important. We're going to be fighting toe-to-toe to assure that our battleground candidates have the resources that they need to communicate with their communities, to let voters know that Democrats have the values that the majority of voters share. But people should know that the Republicans will be pouring unlimited money into the Republican races to try to take freedom away from abortion care, taking away the right for pregnant people to make decisions for themselves. And let's talk a little bit more about abortion. The governor believes that an arbitrary time limit set by politicians is somehow acceptable. But he has said that he would sign any kind of a ban that comes across his desk. So I want you to understand what an arbitrary time limit on abortion care really has resulted in other states. Patients have been turned away from healthcare who have sepsis and are at risk of dying. Doctors have become afraid of treating patients threatened with jail loss or loss of license. There's been a 10% decrease in OBGYN residents in those banned states. And even in Idaho, a hospital closed their labor and delivery unit because of a lack of OBGYNs wanting to practice there. We've had a woman in Tennessee who had to have her hysterectomy because she was denied an abortion. A woman in Florida had to continue a pregnancy when the doctors knew that a fetus wouldn't survive outside of the womb. The baby lived for 99 minutes. There are more tragic stories across the country of women being denied health care as a result of these bans, and we are not going to let it happen here in Virginia. Virginia is the last state in the southern half of the United States that still has access. Between Virginia and New Mexico, almost every single state has put in abortion bans. And lawmakers have forced patients in those states to flee their homes to reach essential health care. And so we are fighting to make sure that we are protecting a person's ability to make a decision for themselves. This November, all 140 seats in the legislature are up on the ballot. And with an anti-abortion majority in the House of Delegates, we have a slim pro-choice abortion majority in the Senate. The governor, who has said he will gleefully and happily sign any anti-abortion legislation that crosses his desk, we cannot afford to lose. We must take back the House and expand the Senate majority. If an anti-abortion trifecta takes place, we can say goodbye to abortion care in Virginia and in the entire South of the United States. Our very rights and freedoms are at stake. And so everybody needs to know that abortion care is on the ballot. We in the Senate Democratic Caucus are going to be working tirelessly to make sure that we are funding our key targeted races. You're going to get to meet a lot of these people today to make sure that our candidates have the resources that they need to communicate with their voters to make sure that we maintain the freedom to decide for ourselves if and when we're going to have children, with whom, and what the timing will be. The stakes are so high. And now I'm going to pass it over to my neighbor and candidate for the 31st Senate District, Russet Perry. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Boysko. And thank you all. Good morning. My name is Russet Perry. I'm a former CIA officer, former prosecutor, and working mom of 2 school-aged children running in the 31st State Senate seat out in Loudoun and Fauquier counties. As the last state in the South, I'm going to talk a little bit more about abortion because it's so central to our elections this year. And as the last state in the South, as Senator Boysko said, without an abortion ban, let me be clear and reiterate what Senator Boysko said, abortion is on the ballot this fall. Last year, we saw Republicans attempt after attempt to enact their extreme abortion bans that were defeated in the Senate, including a ban backed by Governor Youngkin. In fact, the last time Republicans had a majority in the Virginia Senate, they introduced the invasive transvaginal ultrasound bill. And they have made clear that if they gain control again, taking away reproductive rights from Virginians is a top priority for them. On top of that, Virginia Republicans want to criminalize healthcare providers for providing care and women for seeking care. That is exactly the kind of Virginia Republicans hope to build this fall. My Republican opponent has said that he is in lockstep with Republicans and that he wants to restrict access, roll back our rights, and enact an abortion ban. All of that despite the fact, as Senator Boysko said, and studies have shown that maternal mortality rates increase in states that enact abortion bans. So make no mistake, that Republican vision of Virginia, our access to reproductive health care, my access to reproductive health care, will come down to whether or not Democrats can hold the majority in the Virginia Senate this fall. My seat is the 21st most Democratic seat and the tipping point for having and maintaining and controlling a Democratic majority in the Senate. So the outcome of my race may well likely decide whether or not the Republican vision of Virginia comes to fruition this fall. But we are running, all of us on this call, I am running to protect access to safe abortion in the Commonwealth of Virginia, to protect our rights, to protect my rights, to protect the ability to make decisions about my own body, and to ensure that reproductive healthcare decisions are made between a woman and her doctor. I'm going to pass off to my friend and future colleague, Delegate and future Senator Schuyler Van Valkenburg down in Richmond. Thank you all.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for being on the call. My name is Schuyler Van Valkenburg. I'm delegate in 72nd District in Western Henrico and running for Senate District 16. And I know next Senator Mason is going to talk about education funding. And then I'm talking about education well. And I'll just note, because I'm going to talk a little bit about education policies, I would just note that the number one thing we can do for schools, and that Senator Mason's going to go in detail on, is we can properly fund them. We know that research shows that when schools have adequate funding and appropriate funding, they perform at a higher rate and students perform at a higher rate. And I think the Senate budget proposal around education goes a long way to righting a kind of 15-year wrong and lack of funding, and kind of follows up on the funding increases that we put in place under the Northam administration to finally right this ship. But you know, outside of funding, there are other things that we need to do to help kids. We know that we have literacy rates that are declining, NAEP scores that are declining, and we know that there's a lot of ways that we can go about tackling that pragmatically and together, you know, whether it's Democrats and Republicans working together, or it's parents, teachers, and community members working together. And unfortunately, we've kind of seen it in the last 2 years. That's the route that this administration has chosen not to take it. And so I'm going to highlight a couple places where we can go or should have gone, but instead where we have gone. And I think one of those is the teacher profession. We've seen, we've had a teacher shortage in Virginia. We see it getting worse. And we know that there are ways that we can improve that, whether it's teacher pay increases or improving the teacher environment, or helping candidates overcome barriers that get in the way of licensure. All policies that I think can be bipartisan and that can unite people. But instead, what we've seen is teacher tip lines. Just yesterday in the paper, we saw Big Brother policing of university professors for their politics. We saw the governor's administration get rid of a grant program to help teachers potential teachers overcome barriers because of right-wing politics. We know that we should be looking at policies that expand access to pre-K, that improve and reform curriculum and testing, that help people get into community college, like under Governor Northam with the G3 program. These are all things that we can do to improve our educational system, to improve educational outcomes. Instead, we saw the governor spend a year trying to rewrite our history standards and to rewrite them in private, right-wing ideological standards with only their friends looking over them. We've seen them try to institute book censorship, book bans that we're seeing flare up all across Virginia and Hanover County. There was a story just in the Washington Post recently about public libraries having fights over book bans. But then finally, it's about instituting programs that help people and students in particular, those in the most need, overcome. Because if we truly want to get our NAEP scores up and our literacy scores up, we have to get to the kids who most need it. And we had a momentous opportunity to institute tutoring programs that would have gotten into schools and gotten to the kids with the most need. But instead, we had a voucher program that was a giveaway to those that are the most wealthy. It's been a story that's been well written. And we really lost an opportunity with federal funds to really help a wide swath of children and a wide swath of parents, I would note. And I'll just kind of end with, I think what ties all this together is Virginia under Governor Northam was the best state in business twice. You know, we're still, you know, we're ranked second now. But the number one reason that we are the best state for business is that we are ranked at the top for education, from pre-K to college. And imagine how good our schools would be if we properly invested in them, if we made sure all kids had appropriate access, and we were focused on the policies that we know bring people together to help improve student outcomes. And so with that, I'll pass it off to Senator Mason, who will talk about the budget piece of this, which is so vital to our kids being successful.
Hey, thanks, Schuyler. It's so great having a voice like Schuyler Van Valkenburg in the General Assembly and now soon to be in the Senate, because that is a person who's lived experiences in the classroom. I mean, so when he talks about teachers, when he talks about what we're doing in our schools, he's living it every day. And that's just such a critical voice on these issues. You know, when you try to explain to constituents the vastness of the state budget, it can be very difficult. In this, what we've been talking about for well over the last 100 days and what we're talking about for the next 100, it has been fairly basic. And that is a House budget that is a proxy for the governor that relies heavily on tax breaks, on a reduction in corporate income tax, a reduction in the income tax for our highest income earners, and a 10% business deduction. That adds up to about $857 million in one pot. In the Senate budget, we focus on a 2% increase and a $1,000 one-time bonus that has no local match. We talk about mental and physical health staff and literacy support for 4th through 8th graders. And very, very importantly, for the first time ever, or for the first time since in the last decade, fully funding support staff positions. I was in an elementary school in Newport News about a month or so ago, and I was asking the kids what they knew about support staff. Well, they don't know what support staff is. And the teacher would say, oh, it's Mrs. Hernandez, it's Dr. Jones, it's me. Oh, and they lit up like a Christmas tree. So it's not that our schools don't have support staff positions right now. It's just we haven't been fully funding them. And on top of that, you put another $225 million in financial aid and college affordability for higher education. When you stack those things up, we came up with $860 million. All right, so the budget is extraordinarily complex, and we could talk about it for the rest of the week. But when you stack up $857 million in one pot for tax cuts and $860 towards education funding in the other pot, it is a very basic and simple conversation. Now, I left out a couple of the tax breaks, the military tax break on retirement, the standard deduction that would continue to reduce income tax, because there's plenty of room for negotiation. And living in an area, several of us from Southeastern Virginia live in the area of the highest population of military retirees and veterans in the country. And so just this weekend, I met a guy, talked to him at his house about, and he said, hey, I'm going to retire in 2.5 years. What are you going to do about my retirement benefits? So that's a very popular discussion here in Southeastern Virginia and likely across the Commonwealth. So there's plenty of room for discussion, but what we have focused on the entire time since we left session is we believe, even prior to the JLARC report coming out and making it super clear what we've known all along, but we have focused on putting our resources and our money towards education. Can we discuss tax cuts and changes in stratas and all of these things on a go forward? Sure. That's what the December budget and next January is all about. But for right now, using the money we have to focus on funding education in these critical places is what we've been focused on, what we'll continue to focus on, and what we believe that the people of Virginia want us to focus on. So that's just trying to make something very complex into something very basic. And I believe I am passing it to my friend Clint Jenkins. Is that correct?
You're correct. You're correct.
All right. My friend in Suffolk, Clint Jenkins, we will look forward to joining us in the Senate. Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator. I'm Delegate Clinton Jenkins. I'm running for Senate in the newly drawn 17th Senatorial District. This race is crucial. It represents the best chance we have to protect and expand our Senate majority. As someone who spends every day on the campaign, knocking doors across the district, I can tell you what Virginians are going through and what voters want. People are struggling with the rising costs of everything from housing, childcare to groceries. They don't want to see candidates bringing bipartisan bickering to Richmond. They don't want to give massive tax breaks to corporations and to the ultra wealthy donors. They want us to give those benefits to working families, small businesses, and veterans who drive Virginia's economy. People are concerned about gun violence in their communities. As a youth, my mother relocated from Philadelphia to Virginia to avoid gun violence. People don't want extremists who will give dangerous criminals access to high-capacity firearms without a background check. They want common sense safety legislation to keep firearms out of the hands of domestic abusers and violent criminals. This race is all about freedom. Democrats are running to give you the freedom from gun violence, freedom from increased costs and low wages, and the freedom to pursue your dreams of an economic security and prosperity right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm Delegate Clinton Jenkins, and I'm running to be your next senator. And now I'd like to introduce a good friend, Delegate Senate nominee, Angela Graves.
Thank you so much, Delegate Jenkins, and thank you to everyone who's here today. I am Delegate Angela Williams Graves. I am the Democratic nominee for the 21st Senate District in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That district is made up of entirely the city of Norfolk. It represents 43 of 48 precincts within the city of Norfolk. I was born and raised here in the city of Norfolk, and I love this city. And I know what our city can become when folks work together and are given an opportunity to thrive and be at their best. But at the heart of all of that is our values that are important to us as Democrats. As you've heard, the value of freedom to choose, the values of being able to love who you want, the values of being able to start a family when you're ready, not when someone else says that you have to. But what is super important and very critical to the quality of life of residents here in Norfolk and across the Commonwealth, it's a safe community. It's when people are safe. It's when people feel safe. It's when people are able to go to and from work, when they're able to go to the grocery store, when they're able to go to the movie theater, when they're able to do the things that they love to do and feel safe in their communities, when they're able to come home, close the door in their homes, feel safe and go to bed and not have to worry about gunshots and bullets coming into their homes overnight. This past year, two things happened. One, I had an incredible opportunity to speak to young people. And what I saw was hope dying in their eyes. I saw hope dying in their eyes because of gun violence. I saw children who were afraid to go to sleep at night because they didn't know if there were going to be bullets that penetrated, their bedrooms and kill them. I saw hope dying because they were burying at 9 and 10 and 11 years old. They were burying their friends. And for those of us who have a little bit of age on us, we went to funerals of, older people. We didn't go to the funerals of our friends when we were 10, 11, 12 years old. So we want to make sure that we restore that hope by ensuring that we take guns off the streets. The other thing that I saw this session was while we were in committee, in Public Safety Committee one evening, someone got shot and killed right up the street on Broad Street. And you know what the subject of our Public Safety Committee was? It was bill after bill on gun safety laws. Common sense gun safety laws that were proposed, and they were killed by Republicans in the House of Delegates. So the reason I'm running for the Senate is to ensure that we expand that blue wall, that we expand that majority, but that we bring about common sense gun control and gun safety laws in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We should feel safe in our communities. We should feel safe in our own homes. We should feel safe when we go to work, and we certainly should feel safe when we send our children to school. I'm Delegate Angela Williams Graves. I have served at the local level. I have served in the General Assembly as the delegate, and I am running for the 21st Senate District in the Senate of Virginia. It is now my honor to pass this off to Senate candidate for the 12th Senatorial District, Nathan McKenzie.
Delegate Graves, thank you so much for your words and enthusiasm. Get me really excited. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Nathan McKenzie. I am your new favorite candidate running for Virginia State Senate in District 12. Currently, one of the newer faces in this year's election, and in 100 days from today, we'll be ushering in a fresh chapter in our state legislature. The newly drawn 12th district consists mostly of rural and suburban communities in Chesterfield County and Colonial Heights. We are consistently growing and expanding from our new neighbors to our sprouting youth. As with all Virginians, our constituents look towards a brighter future. However, the governor and the Republicans continue to try and cast a shadow on that future. That's why we must rally around the Democrats in the Senate and in the House who are running for office to ensure that our rights are protected and our future days are brighter. I am running for state Senate because my wife and I are part of this community. We are currently enjoying our first year of marriage and plan on building a family here in Chesterfield. That's why I'm running, to ensure that our family's future, our community's future, is brighter. My wife and I are hard workers. We both care deeply about the struggles and aspirations of our community and the Commonwealth at large. Now, I will be the first one to tell you that I'm not a politician. However, I am running for office. And I believe that all Virginians can have access to high-paying jobs, whether they choose to go to college or not. We can do this by fully funding our career development programs and vocational trainings. We can do this by increasing access to mental health resources and prioritizing school safety, as was already stated. This way, our youth may have the resources to combat the troubles they face both inside themselves and in their environment. The key to providing for the next generation and growing our economy is investing in our public schools. The youth are the workforce of tomorrow, and we must empower them for success. When it comes to our economy, we have been dealing with some serious complications. We live in an environment of volatile interest rates, inflation on the rise, and everyday folks are dealing with price increases at the grocery store, the gas station, and so on. And in order for us to improve things, we need to strengthen our workforce by supporting our unions and increasing access to vocational training. We can create more opportunities for employment by incentivizing employers to invest in our communities at large, while continuing to support our small business community as well. This will make it easier for folks to truly experience and fully involve themselves in the American dream. Finally, we must ensure that financial literacy is taught in our schools. We can no longer just educate our youth. We must empower them to become the better workforce of tomorrow. Now, more than ever, we need better leadership. We need leadership that is right here on this call. We need the type of leadership that is willing to advocate for the rights of Virginians truly deserve. We need a voice that understands and speaks the realities of everyday people in the General Assembly, a voice of empathy and action. We are here to serve, and we're here to get it done. And one of those guys who is going to get it done is my new friend, Joel Griffin.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks everyone for being on here today. My name is Joel Griffin. I'm a Marine veteran, and I'm running for State Senate District 27, which represents Fredericksburg, Stafford, and Spotsylvania. We've been identified as one of the most competitive races here in Virginia, and I'm excited to be the Democratic nominee. There's so much at stake in this election, as everyone has already alluded to, from abortion rights to ensuring our public schools are fully funded. But I think the threat's even greater. I think our democracy is at stake, and we've seen the extent that the radical arm of the Republican Party is willing to go to in order to undermine our democratic process. And we've seen some of that right here in Senate District 27, from book burning to my opponent leading legislation for fake clinics that do not provide services to women. After a contentious primary, on the Republican side, their party is still bitterly divided, but we as Democrats are united towards a common goal: victory and progress for all of our citizens. As a Marine, as a small business owner, as a 20-year community advocate, I'm looking forward to earning the votes and support of everyone here in Senate District 27 and representing everyone equally in Richmond. It's my distinct privilege to hand it back to our caucus chair, Ms. Mamie Locke. Thank you all for your time. I look forward to any questions.
Thank you to my current colleagues and to my future colleagues in the Senate of Virginia. We appreciate everyone who has spoken, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. This election is about keeping rights in the hands of Virginians and not taking them away this November. Having access to affordable and timely health care, safe schools, quality education, no excuse and easy access to voting. It's 100 days out from one of Virginia's most important elections. The importance of the Senate Democrats retaining its majority means that we will continue the fight to keep the rights that Virginians value the most. We've talked about all of those rights. Within the last year, Virginia Democrats defeated bills limiting abortion access, and Governor Youngkin has promised to enact an abortion ban if he gets both the House and Senate majorities this fall. You've heard that. Political observers say the results could also give some hint about the mood of voters as the 2024 election cycle gets underway. Democrats in the Virginia Senate with an expanded majority will find it easier to thwart Youngkin's agenda. All 40 Senate seats are on the ballot this November, and we have a chance to expand our Senate majority this election. We have wonderful candidates, as you've heard. This election cycle is a bellwether of 2024 presidential, Senate, and congressional elections across the country. Senate Democrats want to keep their promises by protecting the rights of all who live in the Commonwealth, not just a select few, as our Republican colleagues have demonstrated that that's all that they're interested in. We will now take any questions that you may have.